Hello, and welcome back to the Lifeboat with me, absolutely Arian. And I am excited to be back here on tonight, this Thursday night, to get into this topic. It's called ghosted. Okay, I cannot wait to tell you just about my own experience being ghosted and also just to hear your experiences. I would love to hear where you guys are watching from as you come in. Let me know where you're watching from, who you are, and I'd love to, have conversation with you and go back and forth and whatnot. If you're catching this on the replay, well, welcome. We are no longer here, but I always come back and read the comments. So please make sure that you leave your thoughts on the comment section as well. If you are watching on YouTube, well, don't forget to hit subscribe and get that hit the notification bell so that you are notified, every time that I do go live on the Lifeboat Live. So I'm not going to keep you guys long tonight. It's going to be, short and kind of sweet, but I want to talk to you about being ghosted, right? I've been ghosted before in a friendship and in a romantic context. But for me, I think the friendship ghosting really hurt way more. But so what is ghosting for those who may not know what ghosting is? It's kind of a new-ish colloquialism that we use to refer to an abrupt to people abruptly cutting off contact with you without giving you any warning or explanation for doing so. Even when the person being ghosted reaches out to you, when you try to reach out to the person to just reinitiate contact or gain closure even from the relationship, you're just met with complete silence, right? So, there are obviously different levels of impact that ghosting can have on you. And hey, Chevelle, thank you for joining. So there's obviously different levels of impact that ghosting can have on you. And I guess the level of impact really may be worse depending on the level of intimacy that was curated in the relationship. So I can give you a few scenarios of what ghosting can look like. So Ruby. Sorry, my puppy is losing her mind right now and she's showing off, but I'm gonna get her in a minute if she doesn't stop. So scenario one of ghosting can look like, maybe even going on a first date with someone and, maybe, it felt like it was a great time for you and that person just never called you back after that. I'm sorry, I may have to just take a second and put this dog away because the minute I hit go live, she just is losing her mind. But so Ruby, come here. Come. All right. So you may go on a first date with someone and maybe felt like it was a great time. No, Ruby is acting like she got some kind of ghost. Ruby is just running up and down this place, up and down. I don't know what her problem is, but so like I was saying, you may go on a first date with someone and maybe it felt like it was a great time. That person never calls you after that. And you may reach out to them and then they never answer you and they just disappear. This may be disappointing, frustrating even, but not necessarily devastating, especially if you don't know them. You don't know them very well because you haven't really gotten to know them. They didn't even give you a chance to get to know them and them know you. So in that instance, ghosting, it might be, hurtful, but disappointing, frustrating, but it's, a lot of the times most people can get over that. Scenario two would be you may have hung out with the person a couple of times and had a bunch of phone calls and daily communication. You were starting to really get to know them and develop a routine and a rhythm for that person in your everyday life. then poof, they disappear. Right? This may be hurtful, confusing, unbalancing, even because you're left with questions and wondering what the heck happened, you know? So this can be hurtful. But I think the worst one would be my scenario 3, which is, you know, you've been in a relationship with this person, you've created deep intimacy, you've shared your deepest thoughts, dreams with them, you feel bonded, and you may even like have love for this person. And one day they just walk away and disappear without any explanation or warning. And in some cases, not even any warrant, at least to your knowledge. So this kind of ghosting can be traumatizing, really. It can be soul crushing, devaluing, anxiety provoking. Being ghosted can just, you know, it can be an intensely painful experience and leave long-term scars, you know? So if you're just joining us, we're talking about ghosting. Make sure you hit share because this is happening so often in today's, you know, not even just in the dating, you know, experience, but even in friendships, people are just ghosting people left, right, and center. And I don't understand, you know, because I think it has a lot to do with the amount of access people have to other people, especially when you have an emotionally stunted person. You may find that they just are really able to dismiss people and discard people because they feel like they can, you know, jump on the next best thing on Instagram, on, you know, whatever dating app that they have. So people ghost people. So make sure you hit share because I'm sure most people either have ghosted or ghost people. So let's talk about it. I also want to just put this disclaimer out here about ghosting, right? Because there's only one specific time I would say that you absolutely need to ghost someone. And that's if you are ending a relationship where you are worried that your partner will react in a violent or abusive way. Okay. So you always put your safety first. And in that case, in an abusive situation, ghosting is often the best and the safest option, especially if you have someone who's narcissistically abusive. That definitely requires you to go no contact, and that means blocking, deleting, and staying away at all costs. So I would say violent abusive relationships definitely sometimes, most times, require ghosting. And that is the only exception to the rule according to me. Okay, that's the only way I think that it's really acceptable to ghost someone. But other than that, you need to be accountable, right? So why do you think people ghost? And I'd just love to see in the comments too, like if you've been ghosted, just kind of put the raise your hand emoji up. I could put my hand up. I've definitely been ghosted before. Not a good feeling. But I'm gonna share my story with you at the end once I kind of go through just, you know, the more educational part of it. I'm gonna tell you guys how I got ghosted and how I handled it. Okay, so studies have shown that social rejection of any kind can activate the same pain pathways in your brain as physical pain, meaning that there's a biological link between rejection and pain. Right? And that goes for friends, romantic partners, family. Hey, Sean. That's my friend Sean on here. Thank you so much for joining us, Sean. So at best, and this is not even to justify, but at best, ghosting can leave you feeling confused, self-conscious, and maybe even just concerned, right, about the person. At worst, it makes you doubt and question your self-worth, leaving you with a lot of unanswered questions that may leave you ruminating, which is like just kind of thinking over and over and like internalizing what happened. But when you get ghosted, there's no closure. So you question yourself and choices, which sabotage self-worth and self-esteem, right? So ghosting is the equivalent of the silent treatment, which is really cruel and emotionally abusive, right? being ghosted triggers a cascade of negative feelings. We all have, doubts and vulnerabilities and insecurities that we all have to deal with. And being ghosted could bring up a lot of those insecurities, because it might make you feel like, you're not worthy. So, for example, if someone stops talking to you and you have a fear of not being enough, then you may assume that the person stopped talking to you because you weren't good enough. Of course, there's a lot of other explanations why someone might not want to continue dating you or being friends with you. But when you're ghosted, you have no way of knowing the truth. And so you end up blaming yourself. And it's those unanswered questions that do the damage to people, right? Because it leaves you wondering, what did I do wrong? Did something happen to them? Are they in trouble? Do I need to do something different for someone to like me? Are they angry at me? Which obviously increases self-doubt. Chevelle says, I've ghosted for my safety. Wasn't my first choice, but homeboy was creepy. Absolutely. Like I said before in my disclaimer, like the only reason that I believe that ghosting is acceptable is when it is, when you are faced with a situation that like leaving that person could, you can encounter violence or abuse. 100% in those situations, ghosting may be the best scenario. But otherwise, I think, having communication with someone is always the best way to go about it. So Chevelle, yeah, if you definitely felt like your safety was in jeopardy, then ghosting, might have been the best and safest decision for you. So kudos to you for that. But let's talk about some healthy ways to end relationships, because people sometimes think that, ghosting is the best way to handle things because they don't want to, they're scared to have that communication with the person. They're afraid of confrontation. So, having a two-way conversation is just really important, right? But, I think that sometimes people think that ghosting is the best way to go about it because they're afraid to have to deal with the emotions that come with disappointing someone, breaking up with someone, ending a friendship. I think they're afraid of coming off as the bad guy, and for them, they create like a false narrative in their minds that, oh, they'll be all right. It's cool. Like, because it's like kind of like out of sight, out of mind. If I don't have to deal with it, then it never happened. And you know what I mean? And so it's really cowardly, really. And it's actually speaks more, like being ghosted really speaks more about that person than it ever does about you. Right. And I'm obviously talking about like in relatively healthy situations. It really speaks to, especially if you have no clue why, someone has decided to just ghost you. So there's obviously healthy ways to end relationships, just 1 second. There are all obviously healthy ways to end relationships, and, having a two-way conversation is important. So both people have to feel heard. The best way to do that is usually, I would say, in person. Like when you're going to end, especially a long-term relationship or a relationship that was valuable to you, it's always best to end it in person, where you can sit down and, have a two-way conversation. But if you can't physically get together, I think a phone call is the next best thing. Okay. Talking, and because these days you can FaceTime, you can video chat, and having that conversation where you can see that person's emotion can sometimes even just teach you a lot about yourself and how you handle situations. You know what I mean? So having an in-person conversation, the next best thing would be the phone. I would not suggest or recommend texting. I don't think it's the greatest way to to break up with anyone. But again, at the end of the day, it's still better than ghosting, but still not the best, the best way to go about it. I think also when ending something with someone, I think it's important to do it at appropriate times and do it respectfully. So the decision to break up or to end a relationship, you may come up with that idea at like 2 a.m. in the morning, but that doesn't mean that that's when you do it, right? So just choose a time to meet up that's respectful, and also consider that the other person is about to get some really bad news and it will impact them in some type of way. So for instance, like, don't dump them right before they have to go to work, right? Don't dump them right before they have to catch a flight. Don't dump them, right before they're on their way to a funeral. Just have some consideration, and you can have that kind of consideration by just asking questions like, hey, what are you doing? What are you up to? What do you have going on today? Because I want to talk. Those are, don't just be considerate of the person, especially if you cared for them at any point. You know what I mean? It's always good to have closure, and closure doesn't mean you have to have some long-winded conversation and and go over all the good times, no, and the bad times. But just letting the person know, hey, I'm gonna be stepping back because so and so and so, and and use a lot of I terms in there, so make it about you. Like, I don't feel comfortable anymore, or I, feel like I need to work on myself. Whatever it is, like, own why you are ending the relationship, right? So, ghosting can be just a really traumatic situation, especially on, like I said earlier on, depending on how intimate the relationship was. It can be really hurtful to have someone be an important part of your life and all of a sudden just disappear. So I'm gonna say this right now because I think I'm gonna share with you guys my ghosting story. I was thinking about this, and I was trying to think of if I ever ghosted anyone, and I don't think I have, because I normally have a conversation about how I feel. I'm not scared of confrontation. I can definitely speak my mind, and I can do it in a way that is very healthy and conducive. At least in my adult life, I can. But there are a lot of people who don't have those skills and literally, just are just toxic and emotionally stunted adults. So I'm gonna share with you guys my story, right? Of how I was ghosted. I was ghosted twice in my life that I can even remember of, that were even significant. And one of them was somebody who I was talking to / getting to know. And it was really confusing because like they were really aggressive in their pursuit of me. And I was not as into them as they were into me, but I was like open. I shouldn't say I wasn't as into them, but I was taking my time in getting to know them. And thank God I did, because they ended up ghosting me. And, what they did was, so they invested, they flew me out. You know what I mean? I got flew out, and I spent they wanted me to spend their birthday weekend with them. And so, I did that and whatever. And I remember when I was there, like, I just felt like something was off, but I didn't know what it was. And I remember when I came back, I decided to sit and talk with them and communicate about how I felt. And like, I felt something was off, and I wanted to communicate, is something wrong? Like, how are you feeling? Just checking in and seeing where we were at. And after that conversation, or while we were having that conversation, they said to me that they needed to go to the grocery store and do some groceries before the grocery store closed or whatever. And so they would call me back. Well, they never called me back. They never got back to me. And I checked in a few days later to be like, hey, like, do you want to finish that conversation? They never responded. And then they just disappeared. And so I wasn't all that emotionally invested. So it wasn't heartbreaking. It was disappointing and actually angering, because I was like, I'm actually trying to communicate with you after having a weird, encounter or weekend with you. And you choose to handle this in this way after like pressing me so hard to even talk to you. but I was able to move on, pretty easily because it wasn't that intimate of a development. Yes, we were talking every day. Yes, but like I was somewhat guarded, so I was able to spare myself the agony of feeling all the other things that I mentioned today and like the self-worth stuff, right? Um, but I think the most heartbreaking ghosting that I've had was with an actual really close friend of mine, like a female friend of mine who I like adored. Like she was my best friend. We went to the same church at the time, and we got really, 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 really close. And that church had some very, I don't, cultish ways about it, and so they practiced what you call shunning, which is if leadership, past the pastor, ministers, whatever, feel like you are not doing something, or you're doing something that offends the community or is outside of the guidelines or the culture of the community. A lot of the times they would shun you. You would get sat down, and even so far as asking the congregation to no longer fellowship with you, nor talk to you anymore. And so I had no idea that this was going on. And her and I were super duper close. I mean, like sometimes we'd sit in my car, her car, like for hours just talking, like pouring out, crying to one another about certain things that were going on in our lives. And, we just had a really intimate friendship for like good few years. And when she got the order from her, our leader at the time, our pastor, to halt all conversation with me, all communication with me, and to end our friendship, she did that, and she did it without ever telling me why. She literally would not speak to me, and I would text her and ask her, "What did I do? Something wrong? Did I offend you? Like, what did I do?" I didn't have any idea, and she would never respond to me. She wouldn't answer my phone calls. And it hurt so bad because it left me in a place of just like no closure, and not knowing, not even having a clue of what I could have possibly have done to offend her or to hurt her. It turns out that I didn't do anything to her personally. It was just an order that she was given, and I only found this out years later. But I was left in the dark for so long, and that was it sent me into I think a depression. I was so hurt. I cried like almost every day because like she was such an important and like a valuable part of my life. She was like one of my best friends. And so, or at least to me, obviously I wasn't that to her, because, completely ungodly. It was just horrible, Chevelle. Of course, this happened years ago, but it hurt me for a really, really long time. And it even hurt my ability to like make new friends after that, because I felt like I just was so hurt and um and just so, I don't even know. It was just so traumatizing for me, really, that I just couldn't connect. I had like a wall up whenever I would meet new people who wanted to. I ended up going to another church, and like even trying to connect with people who wanted to, hold me in and pull me in as a part of their community. I couldn't do it. Like I just did not want intimacy with people, especially church people, because I felt like so what are you gonna do? You're gonna drop me whenever you feel like I'm not, like up to par. Sean says, "Did you ever get a chance to have a conversation?" Nope. Till this day, she like still avoids me like the plague. I think, matter of fact, they were given an order. This is funny. They were given an order that they are, after a few years had passed, that they were now allowed to fellowship and greet me as a sister in Christ, whatever that means. And she still never reached out. And I think I think I might have even tried to reach out to her and tell her how she made me feel. I sent her like a long text message because she wouldn't obviously answer my calls. She never responded, not even an okay. And I think that more comes from shame on her end. I think she might be just so embarrassed. And I can't assume why she behaves the way she does. Still, she might be embarrassed. and again, she is somebody who does not like confrontation. So it could be all those things as to why she stopped communicating with me, and or didn't, or chose not to reconcile or to at least have a conversation. But either way, like, I'm actually good. I've made peace with that. This is like, I mean, this is at least like 8, 9 years ago that this happened. So it's been some time, but it took me a couple of years to get over it. It really, really hurt me. Um, so yeah, that was a really bad. I would say the one of the extreme sides of ghosting, which really, really hurt. But yeah, we never ended up having a conversation. And today, I don't think I would ever be interested anymore. Like, so much time has passed. I've grown tremendously since then, and so it doesn't even matter anymore. And I've made amazing, dope sisters. I have great sisterhood with, some really amazing, saved, sanctified people that, I can really call friends. Um, and another thing that I feel like I've learned to do over the years is just really have healthy boundaries, which I don't think I always had, which also, allowed for people to just, kind of hurt me and do it over and over without any or without like severe consequence. So all that, growing in my mental health, growing spiritually, just maturing as a human being, being more mindful, those things really helped me to just kind of move forward. And to just, be healthy and have healthier relationships. So yeah, ghosting. So how do you guys feel about ghosting? Have you ever ghosted someone? Have you ever been ghosted? I know Chevelle said that she ghosted someone, but it was obviously because of, she felt unsafe in that relationship, and she felt like she had to, which again, at the beginning of this conversation, I put out the disclaimer that in an abusive situation, I think it is wise to ghost. A narcissistic, abusive people, yeah, no contact right away, block, get that out, because it's just really it can be really toxic. And those kind of people, there's no reasoning with abusers, with people who are abusive. It doesn't matter how much you express yourself, they will always turn, manipulate, flip it on you. And so you don't even try with those kind of people. You block, right? What does Roseanne say here? She said, sometimes you need to ghost some people in your life. Yep. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, but those are very rare, or very, I should not rare, but very specific cases, right? But it's never healthy to ghost someone just because you don't want to tell them how you feel, or you're scared to be confronted with their emotions. Like, that is never a reason to ghost someone. Big or however big or small the interactions you've had with them are. Like, even if you've just gone on one date, 2 dates with that person, like, you don't have to have a big in-depth production of a conversation, but you can say to them, hey, like, thank you so much, had a great time on the dates, but I think I'm gonna, go in a different direction. I've had that said to me before, and it was no bad blood, no, it was really great. Matter of fact, I respected that person. I was like, well, shoot, like, I appreciate you not wasting my time. You know what I mean? So that's a healthy way to communicate. Sean says, I've unintentionally ghosted friends, but it was during a period of depression where I was withdrawn from everything and everyone. Absolutely. But I think those are, so ghosting, there can be like, I don't even want to say semi-ghosting, where like you just need to retreat. And sometimes you are not in a good headspace where you just need to retreat. And of course, even in those situations, it's always healthy to communicate, not having to tell everyone your business, but communicating, hey, I'm taking a step back. You may not hear from me for a while, but just know that, like, when I get out of this funk, I'll hit you up. Like, it's always good to communicate, especially with people you're in a relationship with. But I obviously understand sometimes we don't have those skills because we've never learned those skills. Like, there are people who have never learned how to communicate as like grown adults, or even just how to talk in your times of depression and, being withdrawn. So yeah, that's definitely a reason why somebody would ghost. But But typically there is some type of like reconnection at some time where, you know, you can now go back and say like, hey, I was in a really, really bad spot. And like usually if you're really good friends with someone, like they'll understand, there'll be love, there'll be reconciliation because they understand that, you know, what you were going through. And matter of fact, I've had a friend who's done exactly that, where they were in a really a bad spot in their life where um what if they you know, like they were really in a bad spot. They were in a depression, and so, you know, they didn't ghost me, but they were just like, hey, I got to pull back from this right now. I can't really even be talking to you because I don't even want to blow up on you type thing. So so they've retreated, and I hadn't heard from them for months, but I respected that. And then when they came back around and then they were ready to talk about what they were going through, like we were able to pick right back up where we left off because, you know, there was an understanding and there was communication. Roseanne says, when they are too toxic in your life. Yeah, when people are toxic, I mean, even in toxic relationships, you can express, hey, I gotta, you know, this is not working out for me. Again, like I said earlier on in the disclaimer, that that in very abusive situations, you know, where, you know, you're dealing with someone who's violent, abusive, or even just emotionally abusive, like a narcissist, you know, you have to go no contact, and you have to ghost those type of people because it's just dangerous, and it's impacting your safety, your mental health, and your physical safety. You definitely need to ghost in those situations. And like I said, those are specific, really specific times where ghosting is a necessity. So yeah. Alexandra says, but what if they ghosted you for your own good? I don't understand what you mean. They ghosted you for your own good. I don't understand what you mean. If you can give some clarification, that would be great. But yeah, so I believe that, you know, it's always a great way to handle things is to communicate, and to just, you know, be able to leave things peacefully where people have closure, people have understanding, and are able to just kind of move on. You know, there's nothing wrong with letting someone know that you're not okay. Ruby wants to tell you about her ghosting experiences as well. Come here, Ruby. Come. You want to say hi to the people? Come. Oh, she's looking out the window. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this. I told you we were going to be short and sweet tonight. If you joined us late, make sure you catch the replay. You can watch it from the beginning and just hear kind of, you know, how I navigated through just different scenarios of ghosting and what that looked like. If you, again, are watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for, notifications every time we go live. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on the replay, make sure you leave your comments. I always come back to read them. And what did you say? Roseanne said, yes, I ghost one because that person brings too much gossip in my life. Well, you know, that was your decision. But, you know, sometimes you can also just communicate that, like, hey, like, you know, I just don't think that this relationship is healthy anymore because I just don't like the way that our interactions have been about, you know, gossiping. And, you know, I think it's good to give people a reason, even if that is the case. You know what I mean? Just give that, like, just walking away and never answering them again is just, you know, it can leave people in a really bad place. So just, you know, have a conversation. If you feel like they gossip too much, you can communicate that and say, hey, like, I prefer that we don't have these kind of conversations where, you know, every time we talk, we're talking about someone else. And if they continue to do that even after you've asked them not to, well, then at that point, maybe, you know, you can, you know, back away. But I don't think, like, again, I said, I don't think ghosting is always the best way, but that's just my opinion. Y'all can do what you want to do. Y'all are grown, right? So thank you again for watching tonight on the Lifeboat Live. But in reality, people don't really get closure 80% of the time. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chevelle. I'm glad that it was informative for you. Make sure you hit share. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you hit share. Make sure you like. Make sure you send up some hearts. Alexandra said, but in reality, people don't really get closure 80% of the time. I don't know. I feel like if communication is clear, then I think you can get closure when you understand why the relationship needs to end. But I feel like I've been able to get closure in relationships for sure. Not always all the time, but yeah, I think most of the time I've been able to leave knowing why I'm leaving and them understanding why I'm leaving or why I'm being left and why they're I think the key is really, and I hate to be, corny, but the key is really communication. It's cliche, but it really is the key to how things can kind of go in a healthy way. So yes, my sister, thank you very much. You're beautiful always. Aw, thank you, Roseanne. That was really sweet of you. Taylor says it really is the key. Absolutely, Taylor. I think there is an art to communication. If you go back actually on my channel, my YouTube channel, I did a video with I did a teaching a few weeks back called The Art of the Apology, and that is I think it was one of my favorite lifeboats, honestly. The Art of the Apology really teaches you keys to how you can communicate how you feel. That also, makes the person that you're apologizing to feel heard and understood, and also allows you to get your point across that is healthy and has resolution and also fortifies your relationship. So yeah, go back and watch that one as well if you get a chance. Alexandra says, not dealing with a narcissist though, right? No, absolutely not. Narcissists, like again, I said in my disclaimer earlier, they're, abusive people who are narcissistic definitely don't care about how you feel. They definitely don't care about what you think. They definitely don't, they are going to manipulate everything you say, turn it back on you. They're going to gaslight you. They're going to, reverse psychology. That's why in those situations you definitely cut your ties, you cut your losses, and you block, delete, and you stonewall them. You ghost those type of people for sure, because it's to protect your own mental health. It's to protect your own sanity. So Alexandra, I would say definitely narcissists, you definitely block out. You definitely don't even, communication is futile in those types of situations. But that's a whole other topic that I'm going to get into on another time. I've been working actually on the topic, we're talking about spiritual narcissists, because there are many spiritual narcissists out there. I've encountered a whole lot of them. And so, well, not a whole lot, but I've encountered quite a few of them. And I would love for you guys to just learn more about it, because narcissism is such a buzzword these days. And I think it's used out of context a lot of the times. It's kind of used as even an insult to insult people. But narcissism really is a personality disorder. It's actually a psychological thing. And so it's a mental health issue. And we will talk about it at another time. But on that note, I am out tonight. You guys have a great night. Make sure to join me again next Thursday, every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern time to talk about another life lesson that I have learned along life's journey. So until then, sail on.